Ladies, gentlemen, members, first of all, thank you everyone for attending this committee for the general purposes on this rather wet and was windy night on this the 7th of September 2022. For those who don't know me, my name is Councillor Aaron Beaver, and that's mainly for those online, and I am the chair of this committee. We don't have any members joining via Teams, but we do have people who may be joining us via what is it? Teams. Oh. Is it all through Teams? What's the YouTube? That's the word I'm looking for. I was going to say that due to regulations that only those in the room can vote, but we are all in the room. But I would say, if you'd like to vote, to speak, sorry, please raise your hand. I'll do my best to make sure I get you all in order. And if you could, at the moment now, place your microphone as close to you as possible to save any kind of problems communicating later on. When you're speaking, please speak towards the microphone so that everyone can hear you. If anyone has any issues, please let us know at the top here and we'll do something about it. Some housekeeping. We are not expecting a fire alarm tonight. If you do hear one, then it's all outside. I do hope it remains like it is because I haven't brought an umbrella and I haven't seen too many in the members' room. Please ensure that your mobile phones are either switched off or turned to standby. And if the technology does fail, but it shouldn't do because we're all in the room, I'll adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to see if we can resolve the issue. And if we can't do that, then we'll reschedule the meeting. Thank you. Item number one, apologies. Ruth, have you any?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've received apologies from Councillor Gordon France, Councillors Tommy Gray and Councillor Zora Khan. Thank you.
Minutes of the meeting on Thursday the 11th of March 2021. Are there any issues raising from that meeting as to their authenticity? No? Could I have someone to propose that they're correct? Yeah, Jean Sherwood. And someone to second it? Anybody? Don't tell me you weren't all there. Nev. All those in favour? Please show. Thank you. Declarations of any interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interests in the respect of the matters contained within this agenda. May I ask now, are there anyone with any pecuniary interest? Good. So item 3, the housing statement of common ground, which is in the to follow page, paragraphs 9 to 76, and in the to follow 79 to 82. Jonathan Node, the director of... No, Alistair, you're going to introduce this. The leader of the council is going to introduce this. Can I invite Alistair to crack on?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm sure Jonathan will do a better job, but he can fill the bits in that I don't do properly. I'm quite interested by the fact of what we would have done if Neville hadn't been re-elected this year to second the minutes from 18 months ago. And I note that I was the last person to present to this meeting as well, so I have a recurring return to this meeting, but thank you, Chair, for the introduction. Right, so the substantive report, the report's in a little bit in two parts. One was issued as an addendum, but it is in one report, if you like. And what it is to confirm a couple of items that have occurred recently around strategic planning, which is under my portfolio, Chair, as a result of a discussion that took place at the joint committee between ourselves, South Ribble and Preston, to agree a statement of common ground around intended housing requirement and distribution. And the document is appended, Chair, on pages 15 to 17, 15 to 18 actually, if you include the signatures. Some members of this committee were at that meeting. Councillor Cullens is on that committee alongside myself and Councillor Morwood and others, obviously from all the three councils. And as the recommendations note, the recommendation is to note the contents of the Housing Land Monitoring Report, which is appended again to this document, for the delivery of a number of homes in Chorley as part of the wider Central Lancashire Plan between 2012 and 2026. Also to look to note the continued absence of a new national methodology for determining housing need and the continued application of the current standard method of housing, which members will probably be aware has not served Chorley well, because the principle of the standard method is the more you build, the more you have to build. We don't think that's fair and equitable, and therefore we have an issue with that. It's also to acknowledge, as it says in point 4, to the emerging local plan evidence, in particular the report from PLP and the consultants that has basically been concerned to this council, detailing an idea of numbers moving forward for the next local plan. And the request is to endorse the Statement of Common Ground, which is Appendix 2, which has been endorsed by myself for Chorley, Councillor James Flannery for South Ribble and David Burrow on behalf of Preston, and that was done at the meeting of the 25th of July. And this is as soon as we can report back, really, given holidays and what have you. And if we leave it till the next council meeting, that then allows further time to elapse before we can report it back to council. To agree that the Statement of Common Ground reached by the three members on behalf of the three councils is the preferred strategic housing policy approach, and that will be published. We can then start to consult with others, i.e. Later this month there's a plan to consult with developers, a developers forum. That's getting all the builders in a room to tell them what the plans are for the three areas, and also to start to get that out in the public, because as you'll be aware, Chair and others, we need to get on and deliver our local plan, because at the moment the local plan is out of date, and therefore as this evidence starts to emerge into the public sphere, it starts to carry weight in planning decisions, and planning committee are somewhat fettered at the moment by the fact that we haven't got some of these documents out there in the public. So it then documents, the report then documents the reasons for those recommendations, which, as you would appreciate, is about we want development to be plan-led, to have robust evidence and to be properly appraised, not just to be speculative, which we are currently facing, i.e. punts from developers to get developments through, because our local plan has come to an end. It's also interesting that our local plan has come to an end just in the after effects of COVID, and the fact that that's had an impact on the development of that local plan. And we've asked for extra time and space of the government, but they haven't allowed that, and therefore we need to get that local plan in place as quickly as possible. There is a report attached, which is the land monitoring report that was considered last night by those members who were here of the local plan working group, and in detail, there's a lot of detail in there about delivery numbers, which basically shows that Chorley has over-delivered its numbers over the last 10 to 12 years, quite significantly. Obviously, as part of that, we've eaten into our land supply, and therefore the fundamental principle of the Statement of Common Ground is that for the next 15 years we'd look to phase the delivery of housing between the areas that currently have a shortfall in what they've been delivering and therefore have land supply available, i.e. Preston and South Ribble, and for us to look to deliver towards the back end of that period, which is the latter 5 years. Also, there's been a move with the approach from government to almost, rather than doing a 15-year plan, to move to 3 5-year plan periods. So you would reassess your local plan every 5 years to give you that 5-year certainty that we've not had previously. So effectively you're splitting the 15 years into 3 5-year plans. That allows an amount of redistribution and readjustment as the plan progresses, which I think is beneficial. But what we need to understand is that in the first 5 years, we will really struggle to deliver the numbers if it was an equitable and straight 3-way split or any kind of other split. The report also documents, I think, that the table 1 on page 12 gives the top 5 scenarios that the consultants looked at based on 13 possible scenarios. So bear in mind, we have 13 possible options. That's an awful lot of options, even for people like us. That was whittled down to 5, which were done on different modelling principles, and one of them was the standard local housing number baseline. There's then various other projections called all kinds of random names like pop group, but the ones we were more focused on was employment led, which indicates that people should work and live in the same area to cut down on travel, pollution, all that kind of stuff. The numbers that come out of that, if you look at the numbers on table 1, of that split of the assessed need for the whole of central Lancashire of 1,334, Chorley, that's probably the lowest percentage for Chorley on a proportion. The standard housing numbers would be 54% for Chorley. The employment-led projection on a one-to-one is 32% for Chorley, and then we've then adjusted that down on a factoring thing over the next 15 years. Basically, Chorley contributes less at the start, but more in due course, which recognises land supply, which I think is sensible as well. What that does then is it allows us to demonstrate that 5-year supply, as it documents in paragraphs 27 and 28. And while this document may have limited weight tomorrow, if it's passed at this meeting tonight, because the minute it's gone through this meeting is as if it's gone through council, so therefore it can be a document that can be relied on. At the moment, it's just a statement of common ground that has to go back to each council. It will gain weight as it progresses through the consultations, the distribution, being made public, all that, because it's a statement of intent of where the 3 central Lancashire authorities are going. And I believe it would be slightly ridiculous for us not to do that until the very last minute next March or next April when the whole plan is put in place, because in reality, if you're making decisions now, you should be having an eye to what's coming down the line rather than just ignoring potential developments moving forward. Given we've got the reports on this, we've got the evidence reports, we've agreed it, discussed it and what have you, and we need to be letting our public and the wider world know about it sooner rather than later. So I believe that there is an argument that we should maybe go in for one of the lower number scenarios overall rather than the 1334, and those arguments have been made in the Joint Strategic Committee that myself and Councillor Cullens are involved in. But the risk with going for a very low number is that that would be thrown out by an inspector at inspection, because in reality we've delivered over 1,600 houses between the 3 authorities per year for the last few years. So to go from 1,600 to less than 1,000 would be unrealistic, it'd be aspirational, it might be very nice, but it's not going to get through an inspector. What we're looking at is a realistic number, and that 1344 is a reasonable number that probably we are advised by the experts is a number that should tick the boxes for the planning inspectorate and for the community as well. The second part of the report, having on the housing numbers, is a secondary item which refers to the fact that we are increasingly, and this is no criticism of County Council at all, they've had staff leaving like we all have. We've got a large number of vacancies here, and there's a large churn in local authority staff across the country and certainly across the North West and Lancashire, of people moving between different areas. There is a shortfall when it comes to obtaining some of the expert highways advice and reporting from County Council to assist with that, and that has been reported by Development Control Planning Committee on an almost every meeting basis, and is certainly reported by ward members when they are considering applications. Most recently, I think, stands out was Charter Lane application, where the report was, we were told it was one thing and then it turned out to be something else. So what we need is better highways reporting from, ideally, County Council. We'd like the County Council to do it. But we appreciate they are short of money, like we all are. They are short of staff, like we all are. And therefore, there's a proposal that Chorley should perhaps contribute to that resource. And if County Council can't do it, they will look to external consultants, either working to County Council or working externally from County Council. And therefore, because we are effectively requiring the end product, we should perhaps contribute to that. This document would allow that conversation to take place with 2 groups of people. One is County Council, and the second group being other districts. Although, at the moment, we haven't got a lot of other districts in our position, certainly our colleagues in Chorley and in South Ribble and Preston and in some other parts of the county are experiencing similar issues, and maybe they would also be interested in bringing something forward along the same lines. This report from Chorley will enable that to happen. We can have that discussion, and it is a report of Chorley to use where we want to use it. So it's an expression of concerns that we have with the planning process at the moment. Again, ideally it will be rectified by County Council, and ideally it will cost us nothing, but we can't guarantee that. What we can't have at the moment is the risk of poor decisions or poor information resulting in poor decisions in Chorley when we are faced with a plethora of large sites being developed and therefore I think it is vitally important that members report this formally in some kind of report. And given that we're bringing a report about planning matters, it seems sensible to add that addendum on. Sorry. That's the report, Chair. The recommendations are detailed in paragraphs. Apologies. Get back to the start of the report. Paragraphs 2 through to 6, and I'm happy to take questions. And if Jonathan, if I've missed anything, by all means, add to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that the recommendations, paragraphs 2 till 6, but then on the supplementary there's also paragraph 2 in the to follow documents. Members, over to you. Have you got any points or questions? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Just if I could pick up first of all on the housing numbers, and this is not to reopen a discussion. I think we're in a scenario whereby if we looked at this 2 years ago, it's a different scenario now with regards to what's happening with people working from home. And where it's now employment-led commute, is that commute going to happen? You know, it's in what is the potential demand of working from home, because people now are looking for larger houses. So that's the first question, and I'll come back if I could on the second part.
Having sat in the tailback from Doorway to Value to the roundabout at Hartwood this evening, I suggest people are returning to the office, Councillor Collins, and we are seeing that. And I think as the cost of energy starts to bite, more people will be back in the office than currently are, because everybody working from home will not seem as attractive when you're having to heat your own house. We're seeing a return to some kind of normalisation. What that looks like, it will be different. More people work remotely, you're quite right. But I think there is still a requirement for... Again, there was a big discussion last night at the local plan working group about, you know, and I looked around the table, I think I said it at the meeting, everybody here will have a different view on all the numbers that are presented. That's the evidence base, and I think Councillor Lees actually said something along the lines of, what's going to happen to the officers, and the officers went, we haven't got a crystal ball. You know what I mean? We haven't got a crystal ball. We've got to work with the evidence base we've got, and the evidence base we've got suggests that there will be that requirement for numbers moving forward. Now, it's not us saying that, it's the people we've commissioned who are experts in this area. You can take issue with that, but we need to get an evidence base past an inspector. The best way to do that is to use the experts as opposed to the man on the street, although I suspect the man on the street has just as much idea at times. But I'll leave that comment hanging. Jonathan.
Good back. Yeah, thanks very much, Alistair. As I say, in hindsight, 2 years ago, would we have done something different? As I say, it's now about the size of houses where people want offices in the house and so on. The other one with regards to the second part, the consultancy part, we do have some concern with this on several fronts. One is the lateness that we actually got this report. It's not been able to be discussed with our group, although I understood it was discussed with your group on Monday night. So some of the group. So we've not been in a position to look closely at it. What does concern me about it is that if there's a fault with the county council, then this should be discussed with the county council first and foremost before it comes to any decision. Along the lines of they're failing, or is this more about we don't like what they're replying in the reports, or is it, as I've always said, in the past, they don't report? But I would have preferred to have seen that discussion held with the portfolio holder and the Director of Highways. The other element of that one is that if we're not getting the service now, we pay for a service, have they got the people to do it? Don't know. The other elements in the report says that by going to a consultancy, we'll get a more local view. Well, I don't think you'll get a more local view than you will get from the county council, who are well versed in what goes on in Chorley. What we'll be almost being asked to do tonight is to sign a blank cheque on the basis it might be needed, which does give me some real elements of concern. So I would much prefer to see that a discussion takes place with the county council over what is required, what the shortcomings are, and then represent this on the basis that they can't meet that demand. Because after all, one of the things that has to happen, they will have to be consulted anyway because they're the statutory authority. So we'd end up with two reports. We don't have a choice but to consult them. So do we then say, right, well, the county council say one thing, the consultant said the other, who's right? So, as I said, that's just my feeling.
Councillor Bradley. Agree to a certain extent, but I probably don't agree with the outcome. This has been raised with LCC numerous times, maybe not under the current administration, but certainly with the previous administration, where it certainly fell on deaf ears. And it was, you'll get what you get. kind of approach. Now, that's perhaps a sign of the last leader of the county council. Let's not dwell on that subject. But it has been an issue for a long time. It's been an issue since I was on planning committee numerous years ago, that we were very rarely satisfied with the reports that came from LCC, because it seems all divorced from reality. They were visiting sites at the incorrect times of day, not in working times or outside of working times or what have you, when areas are busy. It's been a constant issue, but it's certainly got an issue lately. And again, it's our planning officers, when asked, I believe, and I'm looking as members here of this Development Control Committee, when asked what the problem is with getting these reports through and why they're not picked these up, they're being told we're really struggling to get information from County Council. So we could have a row with them. We could be starting to say, hang on, we're going to go elsewhere and and do that, commission those independent reports, and then that would be worrying for the very reasons you point out, for locality and for long-term sustainability of that service. What I think we're trying to do is identify a problem that allows us to have that conversation with an evidence base, again, with the County Council and with other districts, and also allows us to hopefully get a better service from. But again, we have to recognise that Chorley is quite a super user of the county highways planning and highways function, because we have more development in our area than most other areas. Other areas will be using them occasionally and sporadically. We are using them almost every week, and we've seen that with the number of special meetings we've had to put on, large site applications, etc. We are unusual, and therefore we do think it's correct. If we want that enhanced service, want a better phrase, we should pay for it. Now, ideally we'll pay for it within County Council, or we'll pay for it to be a consultant resource located within County Council to get the benefits of locality that you're referring to. But I think if we don't have it from a group like this, then we would struggle to have the evidence base for it. And Adele Hayes, as the planning lead, and members, I'm sure, will have vast experience of where we feel we're not getting the depth of reporting because they are spread too thin. And therefore, this is to give us the wherewithal if we need to, and I suspect if a decision was made to pay for that, and detail it would certainly be reported back to other groups, i.e. ideally full council or exec cabinet, because a decision would have to be delegated down to do that. As I look at it now, this is a point of principle that we can then go away and have that conversation with other district leaders, but also with the county council themselves. And we have had that in the past, but like I said, there was no appetite to do anything about it in the past.
Can I just hold you on this? Can I just bring Councillor Hilton in?
Thank you, Chair. This is just additional information that the Planning Committee will be receiving, and I'm sure you will agree that the more information that we have on Planning Committee making these decisions, the better the decision making will be. So I see this as a benefit with additional information coming through. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. What I actually see it as being the taxpayer paying twice. Sorry, I see this as the taxpayer having to pay twice. They're paying a consultancy fee plus they're paying their council tax, which pays for this service. I think what Councillor Bradley said was that, yes, the old regime reported that. There is a new regime, and that new regime actually has enhanced the reporting structures within highways. That's why I say I think it's important to have that discussion before making this decision.
I don't think that's correct from the information we're getting from our planning officers. Number one, that they're enhanced. What they are is they're seeing an increasingly poor service. Now, again, I think that's because of the individuals leaving the team and what have you, and maybe an experience and what have you, and I'm not there to run the county. That wasn't the intention, but Chorley has a long-standing history, and again, this is no criticism of Chorley county councillors, Labour or Conservative, of paying for what we think should be county services to be delivered, whether that's the youth zone, whether that's buses, whether that's whatever it is, and doing that work because we don't think we get the service that we require, our residents require from the county council. Now, we can debate that for long and loud, and the solutions to that, Alan, I think we have debated that long and loud and the solutions to it previously over many years. But what we can't do is have a risk that we make bad decisions based on bad evidence in Chorley on people, on housing in people's villages and what have you, and that's the very real risk, I believe, at the minute, as evidenced by the Charter Lane fiasco, to be quite blunt with you, when at the last minute a report had to be pulled because it was found to be incorrectly actioned by the applicant, but again, county highways had not flagged that up. We all have our ward conversations. I read a report the other day for Babylon Lane that was, concerning residents because it seemed to bear no relation to the reality of what they experience every day. That should not be the case.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. We're referring here to one aspect about the planning system, the highways. I just get a bit concerned that if we go ahead with this, do we then do the same with United Utilities, who would basically every application say, yes, our sewers are absolutely fine, it'll take anything you want to keep chucking into it, when anybody with half a brain can see it's blatantly not true? Do we do the same with them?
Potentially, yes, because there are scenarios where you would challenge and commission separate drainage reports. And again, back in the day, the county used to do those drainage reports, so they've only been recently taken over. Yeah, in reality, yes, because if we're not getting the service to make the decisions that we should be making, then we need to look at it. This is a specific issue at this point in time. The drainage is an issue at times in places, but it tends to be more consistent and more, because it's a bit split, I think, different resources within you do some of that work as well. There's your clean water and dirty water and all the rest of it, and that does tend to come from different places. But yeah, in principle, we might end up doing that. But in principle, if we're not getting that service, then we need to be demanding that. And we have tried to demand it previously, because part of the scenario is that with County Council, they are a partner. You are more of a service provider, and therefore we could perhaps be more robust with them because they are ultimately a private company, and therefore they should be doing that. They have statutory requirements, but they aren't a public body like the County Council is. And not to gild the lily, Councillor Platt, I think you had problems with the highways reports regarding the prison, which led to the refusal. Did you not?
Not the highways report.
The highways outcomes around the prison application, which the County Council seemed to think were fine.
I mean, the residents were more concerned about where the access is rather than anything else. And
fundamentally, they had a problem with the highways report from County Council, and that's why they rejected the application, Councillor Platt.
Councillor Hill.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, I sit on the Planning Committee, and I've always been very careful to read through the reports from highways, etc. But we had a site visit to Charter Lane. I'm just giving you some examples here of recent problems. The site visit to Charter Lane really opened my eyes. LCC Highways was saying that there was absolutely no issue, effectively, looking at the report. But when I went down there, I was seeing quite the opposite of what LCC Highways had actually said in the report. I was seeing evidence of speeding, etc. there. And that is what helped persuade me to actually vote in favour of refusing the application. There has been another report that's been questioned when this council has instructed, I think, a further traffic survey as part of a public inquiry into the prison. And that traffic survey came to a different conclusion to LCC Highways. So there is evidence here that the reports are not as they ought to be at the moment. Going back to United Utilities, I've not come across any specific examples per se where that's actually been the case or we've had evidence to call that into question. But these two incidents to me are suggesting that there is a problem with the highways. So I'm quite happy to actually propose that we accept these proposals this evening, moving forward, because my personal experience of that and sitting on the planning committee show me that actually there is an issue here. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Brock, could I ask, just coming back to Councillor Platt's question, that if, for example, is United Utilities next, and you said, yes, we would, and it was somebody else next, am I right in thinking that the public might think that that we are the problem, the council, rather than the governing body? Because they're always going to come knocking on our door. So are we not right in going for another opinion?
I'm sure there are many people, both at County Council and elsewhere, that often think Chorley is the problem, and often I am the problem. So, yes, I'm sure that they will think that. But ultimately, we have to demand the highest possible service for Chorley. And therefore, and that's why I said the comment is, if needed, we would get a separate drainage report. We would get a separate highways report. We get a different, separate ecological report if we need to, because there is criticism sometimes of, and it's not a Lancashire service, it's a Manchester service, the ecological survey, the people that we use, because members in the planning committee say it's not robust enough, we need to go somewhere else, we need to get alternative reports. So it's always about, you know, we are effectively a service end user, and if we're not comfortable with that, we should be looking. But what we're trying to say to County Council is we understand it's not a fundamental flaw in your system. What it is you've got a hiatus at the moment of staff leaving, experienced staff, knowledgeable staff who are difficult to replace. The short of money, you know, we're looking to cost share where we can, and that's part of the Lancashire-wide working that we're trying to do and all the rest of it. We appreciate that. What we want to do is raise it as a formal issue, and rather than just coming and saying we've got a problem, which is what we've done in the past, is to find a solution, which is we'll put some money in, because we accept we are a higher user of their services than other local district authorities. So yes, are we paying more? Yes, but perhaps we should pay more because we're using the service more. That's a very difficult concept in local government, where it's a universal system, isn't it? But perhaps it should be set up a bit more like that, and that is also something that we've said at shared working. If you're getting more out of the service, you should be perhaps putting more into it. So there are some services in Lancashire that we hardly use, but we pay the same as everybody else pays. That isn't fair and equitable. We're happy to pay as demand, because that's a sensible approach. And therefore, if you don't want it, you don't pay for it. But we want this service, and we want a 5-star service, and we think we're perhaps not getting that for the very reasons that Councillor Hilton said, and others have accepted in the voting recently.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just coming back on that, Alistair. Almost if I was the Director of Highways now, and we vote tonight to pass a budget, I know the answer whether I want you to pay enhanced or I'll improve my service. It's a simple one. I want you to pay, because it deals with my budget. It goes back to what I'm saying earlier. I think the conversation needs to be had with Highways. If they can't provide that service, then yes, I can understand why we would need to want to pay. But at the moment, by agreeing to pay, as I say, as a provider, I know where I would come. Just another question, Chair, as well, is could we possibly take these two items separate, the actual numbers and recommendations, and the recommendations on the consultancy?
Sure.
Yeah. Just in terms of trying to get this over the line, it's establishing the principle of support to the discussion and support to county colleagues to see if they can enhance the service. As a suggestion, if we took the budget number out at this stage, then the principle is established. We've got another meeting on the 27th, is it, of September?
Yeah.
Next council meeting.
Yeah.
We could have done a little bit of work on that. It's just
So,
that it's
so
the...
you'd remove, so we'd establish sorry, Chair, through you. To establish a non-recurring budget of TBC to fund highways evidence, yeah? In paragraph 2, and then in paragraph 9, it would be estimated that the budget could be so much per site. And that allows the discussions to take place, and I can report back to full council in September.
Yeah, if I come back on that, Chair, thank you. Yeah, I think I'd be happy with that. I think just a slight addition to that is somewhere following consultation with Lancashire County Council Highways, because it may not require it. You know, that discussion could be had quite soon, and I'm sure they'd be more amenable to do that. Then, you know, but I'd be more than happy with remove a figure and then that discussion and then come back to the next meeting.
And add the words following consultation. Right. Well, Mr Moister writes that down sensibly rather than me making it up. This demonstrates the problems in bringing reports quickly and not spending the right money on them. Because we've all been on holiday, to be quite blunt. So, yes, and apologies for that. But, yeah, that it's the principle, it's not the money. So, and I agree with that. So, there's no commitment to spend 125,000. In fact, I'd hope we wouldn't have to.
So you're happy to take it together with the amendment?
Do you want me to quickly type it out and then bring it on? You might have to give me a second.
Chair, is there any other questions about anything else while Ruth's doing that? Any jokes? Songs?
Neville, come on.
Wait, just to report, myself and the Mayor had a great day at the allotments in Exton.
It was fantastic.
So the perils of building extra houses, you do get a few benefits, don't you? Because those allotments were, yes, gave me jealousy. Have you got your name down for an allotment now, Julian?
I really dig it.
They really dig it. No, it's very good. Thank you, Alan. And passing on to Deborah. I was trying to say it before, but yes, it was good. It was a very enjoyable day. Was it not? You were just directing traffic. Right.
Bollards, yeah.
Yeah, she's got the mayor's got a new car that you can't stick the badges on because it's not metal.
Right, that'll be nice.
Councillor Bradley, I can't quite see this. Could I ask you to read it, please?
Sorry, I think we're still.
I mean, to read it out.
Working on it.
So it's to agree the principle of fixing a budget to fund highways evidence to present to planning committee after consultation with LCC Highways. Are you happy with that?
Then everything else is the same, which is notice to be authorised by the Director of Planning and Development. Yeah? Yeah, so everything else is that.
Right.
And then that other paragraph then is fine in terms of, you just delete the last sentence of that paragraph 9, yeah?
In the report.
Yeah. As an estimate there, maybe it'll say 10 sites. If you just take that out, it will say there's 10 to 12,000 pounds per site.
It's not part of the recommendations, it's just a recommendation in the report. So
Right. Okay. Right. So would the second sentence remain then? That it is noted spend to be authorised by the director of, or not?
I think if we're coming back in at the end of September, we will firm up the proposal.
At that point.
We've done the consultation.
So that's the pure recommendation then.
Yes.
Okay. Easy. Right. So Chair, to agree the principle of fixing a budget to fund highways evidence to present to planning committee after consultation with LCC Highways. That's the recommendation.
So the consultation over, they're the recommendations. May I ask for it? Well, Councillor Hilton, you initially proposed during the debate. Are you still happy to propose with the amendment?
I'm not really clear what this amendment means. I'm sorry. Can someone please just explain it in a bit more detail before I agree to that? Thank you.
In my simple terms, it's that we're not going to put a figure in it. We're going to ask LCC, is there a problem? And then if there is a problem, figure out how much it costs and come back with that. Am I correct? So we're just deleting a figure.
Everything else remains the same.
Yeah, and then we'll come back with the figure.
And I'm happy to make that proposal.
Thank you. Anyone to second that? Councillor Derbyshire? All those in favour? Just for the sake of it, anyone against? Any abstentions? I didn't think I saw all the hands up, but there you go. All right, so, right. Well, I never know. Right, so the motion is carried.
Through you, Chair, the Councillor Berry doesn't like being taken off all the committees as being mayor, so she has to involve herself. The principle of the mayor not being
polish it when I've
political.
finished.
She's observing being political, Chair.
I wanted to sit down there. This is for ease, this. So the motion is carried then. And
The amendment.
with the amendment. Is there any other urgent business that's previously been given to the chair? None? Any other? You were just teasing, aren't you? No further items. The meeting is now closed. Thank you for your time, and thank God we didn't have a fire. Thank you.